Remix. 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 Remix.
Good morning, everyone. What it do, nigga? So you're all getting our wish, which is that Amber takes over. Yes, I have finally, launched my diabolical villainous plan to get rid of all men. I'm kidding. But it is just me because they left me. I was on time and prepared. It's okay though. It's not Geechee's fault. I'll let him slide. But I hope y'all are having a great morning. Welcome to the Remix Morning Show. It's Amber, aka A is for Afro, aka everyone's favorite policy organizer. And I don't know where the other guys are. So yeah, it's very much the Amber show, which is fine because I have so many things to talk about. I know y'all are probably seeing all the stuff that's happening in Memphis. And so I have, so many stories. Um, One, I just want to say the federal occupation is really messing with my love life because my favorite judge don't want to come visit no more because the federal government is taking the city under siege. Secondly, I just want to say that the whole psychological warfare thing about like federal agencies taking over is very, very real. And that's what I hear about the most. Like people getting so annoyed with like these helicopters flying everywhere, all these extra ass traffic stops. It's very annoying and it's very uncalled for. And we all know that it's not going to keep anybody safe or help to fight any kind of crime. I think that Lorik is trying to fight back because he has made it onto the live stream link. So the coup was not as successful as I thought, but I did try. Lorik, how are you?
I'm great. Well, what cool? What I miss?
I was
I'm
just
right
talking
on.
about how my diabolical villainous plan to kick all the men off the show has worked, and it was my show now.
Oh yeah, no, my bad. I see. Damn it in the chat. Nope, we're here. Unfortunately, haven't wiped this out just yet. How
I
you
tried.
doing?
I did my best.
Did I miss our usual? What do you do, niggas? Did I miss that?
Did miss it.
Damn. All right. Morning.
It happens. It happens. Not to me though, but it does happen.
I try my best.
And Geechi
How we
Illinois
doing?
too.
I heard about some federal government takeovers, or is it about the National Guard still? Is that what you were?
Federal agencies, not the National Guard. The National Guard ain't even here, which I can also talk about. But also, good morning, Denzel. So jealous that you're a Highlander, but whatever. I hope that homecoming is amazing. Are you going, Lorik?
No. What's happening in Highland?
Highlander Center has this homecoming event every year. It's really cool. They have like different trainings and workshops and stuff. All the black organizers meet up. It's so cool. All the cool black organizers. They never invite me, so
Okay, yeah, I haven't got my invite just yet. So,
yeah, I'll be finding out like secondhand. I'll be like, oh, cool. It's okay though.
but shout out Denzel. Denzel's a great comrade. Um,
Giselle is the best.
do we
So I was
have?
talking about like the whole federal occupation thing that's happening in Memphis. I talked about it just a little bit, not a lot. But the one thing I will say, I clocked this last week that I didn't feel like they're really gonna bring the National Guard here. And then I felt like they were really gonna bring in a whole bunch of federal agents here. And people were just so hung up on the National Guard that they think all the people here are also the National Guard, even though they're wearing like FBI on the back of their shirt and Homeland Security. They just like making conflating everything to being, oh, that's just the National Guard, which is not true. Because I was like, you need to know that those are not National Guard troops because they can arrest you and they can pull you over and they can do a lot of other things that the National Guard cannot do.
Yeah,
I just think that they purposely are like weaponizing the idea of sending the National Guard somewhere when realistically they're sending like a whole shit ton of federal agents. There's like 300 federal agents here right now. It was like 283 or something the other day, and 300 state troopers. and they're just like flooding the streets with all these people. Yesterday, I stopped at a market and I saw the Department of State, and I was like, "Who is the department?" Well, it said DSS on the back, and I was like, "What is the DSS?" And I was talking to my boyfriend on the phone because we were like doing cop watch stuff, and he was like, "I'm looking it up, and it says Department of State's deputized security." And I was like, why would they have deputized security? That's so weird. Like the Department of State is like for foreign affairs and shit. But basically, like to make these like operations successful, they have to like deploy anybody they have available as a federal agent because they're trying to do such a big like operation, but they don't have enough personnel.
Yeah, alphabet boys.
Yeah,
Crazy.
that's what I said.
When you start seeing agencies you never heard of before.
Child, I said, the fuck is a DSS?
Yeah. I do hear you though. That seems perfect, like the perfect cover, though, right? Get everybody's attention on one thing and then shift their attention elsewhere. That seems to be the Trump administration's strategy usually.
That's why I was like, when people are saying a whole bunch of stuff, you shouldn't pay attention to the thing that the headline is popping out saying. You should pay attention to everything that they're saying. Because I even like dissected the press conference that he did and that our governor did. And I was talking about how, like, even when they're talking about the task force, right, they don't mention the National Guard to the very last thing. They list all these federal agencies, and then he was like, and the National Guard, but there's still no National Guard troops here. So I was like, you have to pay attention to what people are saying because he was telling y'all that all these people is going to be here. And y'all are just only focused on the National Guard that had like 10 people the other day at the press conference. Like there's no National Guard troops walking around. There's like FBI agents and shit. And nobody listened to me, but it's okay because they're noticing it now. But at first, nobody was listening to me.
You know,
you get your Black Liberation Media merch, you guys. I heard they have really cool T-shirts that say "Busy with Black Liberation" with like a nice fro silhouette on there. It looks similar to my fro. But
we got fro merch. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No, I definitely. We should plug. We obviously got to plug the store in the chat.
Yeah. Zinzi said people don't listen to me either. Amber, I feel you exactly. People never listen until it's way too late, and then everybody's like, "Oh no, this bad thing's happening." But it's okay. Also, Lord, I actually have to leave at 8 because I have to go do a neighborhood patrol shift.
Cool.
So I'll be trying to do mine early in the morning because I don't like being late at night.
Work. I'll be able to hold it. I think, or I hope.
He just should be here soon. He just had some tech issues, but he should be here in a second. In the meantime, I do have a video we can watch about a video that I made about like the federal agencies here and like what they're doing.
Sure.
See that.
Let's jump into that, and then I think it's really tied to the national thing with Pete Hesgeth and those military officials. So I think we can transition right into the other story right after that. So let's do it.
Okay, you mean the he was calling them fat or a different one?
Oh my! If you got that one, cool. I only saw the regular address, the usual, like where this killer.
I saw a clip, so if I can find the clip while we're talking, I'll find it.
If people fat, that's wild because I have a clip of this man not being able to do a pull up.
He said, and if I, as a Secretary of War, can do my PT, you need to be able to do your PT too. I look around, all I see is fat generals who can't do anything. I said, whoa.
Bro, did you see that boy can't lift himself off the ground. He certainly can't do the PT test. I don't know what he's talking about. But he did not look like
Lizzie said, I need a women's fitted t-shirt. Do I have those? I think they have women's sizes, but there also might be unisex. I know it's unisex for sure, and I think there also is a women's size option. Man. If not, man, you have to tie that on the back like they used to do.
And, with a rubber band.
Yeah, tying it on the back. Okay, I found the video. I'm going to share my screen so I can show it to you guys.
No sound. They muted you, Amber. They muted your voice. Censorship. Now, for real, is that new?
What?
Did you have some music in the background? Was it copyright police?
Favorite? No, it works.
Okay, I don't know. Let's try it again.
Child, they had scared me. I thought I had got taken off the internet.
You're right,
Shit.
Dre. Without it was a chin up. That's right. It's even easier in my opinion. He didn't even have to do a pull up. No, it was a chin up, and he was struggling. Maybe it was the end of his set. I couldn't tell. Let's see if we can get Amber's audio going on.
We're gonna see. Oh, they want me to log in. That's why I don't know my login. Damn. Okay.
You don't know your login to social media.
I don't have it memorized. I'm gonna have to figure it out.
Oh, that
No.
autofill. Yeah. Autofill's
I never log into this on the computer. I mean, who does that?
I don't know. I got that create strong password thing, and then it just saves it all to a keychain. I don't even make the passwords anymore. They make you change them every month, or you get an email that it's been leaked in a security leak or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, that's too much. They want too much from me. Hold on. Let me think. I posted it on Facebook. I'll go on there. Because this is too much.
Yeah.
This is why I don't like the internet.
Well, I do think it's been wild how over time it's become like all these other things where we're inundated with like ads and people violating our privacy. But the fact that like text messages now, I don't know if you get those, are spam. They even like put a report junk on your iMessage because you're getting crypto people. I get a bunch of job fair stuff. You apply for this stuff. So it's just crazy. My text message inbox now has spam, like my Gmail.
It's really annoying.
It's rough.
Okay, I was able to find it. Okay, so we're gonna have to watch on Facebook, y'all. Act like you didn't see stuff.
It's Amber, your favorite policy organizer, of course, here to talk about what's happening in Memphis because we know there are federal agents on the ground and I want folks to be as protected as possible. So here's the tea. So the National Guard has not made it to Memphis yet, but the folks that are here are federal agents like the FBI, the ATF, the DEA, the U.S. Marshals, and ICE. And they are pulling folks over 4 to 5 cars deep. So if you get pulled over, here's what you need to expect. These officers are specifically looking for folks with warrants. So they might pull you over for an initial traffic stop, but they're searching your ID to see if you have a warrant out. So you need to go and check yourself if you have a warrant. You can go to bit.ly/Memphis warrant check and type your name in, type your loved one's name in, type your friends' names in, and check to see if y'all have warrants so you can protect yourself so you know what to expect if you get pulled over. So here's how you keep yourself safe. If you're stopped, ask, am I free to go? And if they say yes, you walk or you drive away. If they try to search your belongings and they don't have a warrant, you should say, I do not consent to a search. If they ask you to sign, say, or agree to anything, do not. You can invoke your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent at any time. So you can consistently say, I have a right to remain silent. I have a right to remain silent. And that's it. You have a right to film officers. You also have a right to post where you see law enforcement officers. That is not illegal. We've seen law enforcement in these type of vehicles that say wildlife agency on the back. There's also a lot of state troopers out. And so if you're pulled over, you'll probably be pulled over by at least 4 to 5 different cars. I'm also going to share a clip of what the officers are wearing and what they look like so you know what to expect. This operation with the U.S. Marshals started last night and has been ongoing since. And so they're going to keep pulling folks over and trying to get as many people arrested as possible. So protect yourself and protect your people. As always, it's important to be aware, but not afraid. Informed, but not incapacitated, and educated, because this is not the end all be all. All right, y'all. Peace.
Well done, Amber. Thank you. Good information. You're muted, I think. I can't hear you. Well, it says you're unmuted.
I was saying you're welcome. My bad.
Okay.
But yeah, so I
didn't even notice I was locked in. Geechee's here. Yo. Good morning.
What's up? Good morning, y'all.
How you
get
doing?
you. Did you pull your hair back?
You
get an updo?
Yeah.
Ooh.
So, Amber, did you want to say more about that story? First off, I think we got asked earlier this week to do some Know Your Rights kind of presentation on BLM. So I appreciate you getting that energy started. How did you gather the information for a video like that? And what is your I was gonna say, I guess, community that you're sending this information to. It just looked like it was the Black Memphis community, but I wanted to know if there was specific places you circulate these kind of videos.
Yeah, I just posted them on my Facebook. Well, I post them on Instagram and TikTok, and then I post this to Facebook also. And I don't have a ton of Facebook friends, but I do make the videos public so they can be shared, and they get shared a lot on Facebook. So I usually try to leave them public and make sure they post there too, because there's a separate audience on Facebook than what I have on like Instagram and TikTok. Like Facebook is mostly like older folks or like my family or like my older cousins. So definitely my target audience of people but that usually aren't on like Instagram. So I try to make sure I post on all three of them. But we have a rapid response group. So I actually created a campaign here called Free the 901. And it's a campaign of different orgs here that are running a rapid response hotline. We have the same bail fund that we've always had here, but we're like highlighting that bail fund. And then we have different committees that are doing work in different neighborhoods. So there's like a mutual aid committee helping with the unhoused community. We have a legal community that's helping with like the Know Your Rights stuff. So like the stuff that I was reading was from my ACLU Know Your Rights graphic they made. And then I took the graphic they made and branded it for Free the 901 with the ACLU logo and stuff on there and got push cards printed. So we've been like handing those out and giving them to like student groups and taking them to schools and stuff. And then I'm on the rapid response and the comms committee. So most like the flyers and stuff we're making, I'm pushing out, or the rapid response hotline. So that's why I was saying, get you before you got here. I was telling Lork I got to leave at 8 because I have a neighborhood patrol. I'm trying to do mine early in the morning because I don't like driving late at night. I feel like because I wear glasses and I feel like it's hard for me to see at night when I'm trying to like identify people. Like I'm doing like close ups and stuff. I was like, I can't. I feel like I'm not getting the information I'm trying to give to people. But the videos and stuff that you saw were from like people who were sending them to us. So like we have an Instagram page, a Facebook page, and then the rapid response hotline is with Vincent Darios 901, which is neighbors in Spanish. And one of my best friends, Maria, she created that org like 2 years ago. So like it's been a standing org to have a hotline they've been using for a while. So the number is very known here. And the only main difference we're seeing like in the immigration enforcement stuff is that Black people are being picked up like real heavy. And I think it's because they didn't have like the capacity they needed to target the Hispanic community and the Black immigrants. But we have like 10,000 West African immigrants here alone. And they've taken like 28 in the last 2 days. So I definitely can see how the added capacity has made it easier for them to target Black folks, which is what I was trying to explain to people. But people are so fucking stuck in their ways. They're like, no, I'm Black. That's not a problem for me. I was like, baby, they finna take your ass too, just like they took them niggas in Chicago. Y'all are not being realistic. Anti-Blackness it goes way beyond you not being Hispanic. Like you're going to be targeted too. And I think that they're realizing that now because every car that's pulling folks over has an immigration agent in the back. They have an HSI agent in the back. They got something related to immigration in their car. And because our police department will not cooperate with the federal government because they want to ride in the MPD cars, they're riding in state trooper cars. So they're riding like 8 deep in these trucks. And then they already been flipping cars. They flipped a car yesterday doing a high-speed chase because our police department does not allow high-speed chases for that reason. They've had multiple crashes in the last like 2 years, so they don't allow them to high-speed chase. So now this federal agency came in here and they're like, well, we're going to do it. And they didn't flip the fucking car. The shit, it was crazy. I was like, y'all should be surprised y'all didn't die because the way that car was flipped over multiple times, but they just came here and did what they wanted to do. So now they're seeing like the ramifications of that.
Yeah, it's wild all the ways it's linked. I had a separate question, but you already made me think about just how this is going to be used against us. First of all, if police ever get an excuse, like other excuses to pull people over, it's never good for Black people, as you already said. Like I could see a cop pulling over a Black American, been here since however many, they don't care, and they can use whatever justification. You just gave them another reason. I think it's really tied to some of the stuff going on in South Florida with Alligator Alcatraz. Currently, even though they said they were going to close down the facility, they backed out of doing that. So higher judges and supported DeSantis basically stopped the lower court judge from blocking Alligator Alcatraz. And now, because they were in this halfway point of shutting it down and moving people, there are 1,200 missing inmates, or that the State Department has no answer for where they are, and we're still trying to find it. So 1,200 families that have been impacted, 1,200 people that are disappeared, and the State Department says, not real, not true, not happening. So just really wild. I was gonna ask how long it took that ecosystem y'all developed in Memphis to form, because it sounds like y'all have, like you said, a mutual aid, y'all have legal, y'all have people who have been making hotlines for the past 2 years. So I just wonder, how long does it usually take to get that kind of thing set up for folks who are trying to get one started in their community?
I would say that most of the infrastructure already existed. So like a lot of the orgs here already existed. That hotline has already existed here for a while. They've had the hotline for a minute. We've had a bail hotline for a long time. We've had a bail fund since 2015. So a lot of the infrastructure was already here. It was just us coming together to like make the campaign. And that took about 3 weeks. So from the initial announcement, we had a meeting a few days later after that, and then formed the committees and have been working since then. So hi Geechee, do you have any comments?
I'm just catching up. I think I'm not fully sure what y'all talking about, but the last
We're talking
comment.
about the federal government being in Memphis.
Yeah. Yeah, but what I'm saying, I didn't really hear a lot of it, but when Lorik was talking, I was thinking about like I remember like some Baltimore City police going through a training that I had for the in-service program, and we started talking about pretextual stops, which is like legal in all states. So like they can just literally follow you, and anybody driving from A to B is going to break at least 2 to 5 traffic violations. It's very easy to do that. Like, so with the pretext stop, they like, it's like vehicular stop and frisk, obviously, but they could just stop you for anything and then escalate whenever, however they want. And so I think I was just thinking of that when Laura was talking, but yeah, I don't have any much.
Yeah, we actually, so some of the background stuff that we've been talking about in our strategy meetings are about like how pretextual stops were outlawed here. So we passed a city ordinance to remove pretextual stops. We also passed a city ordinance to not allow Memphis Police Department to do traffic enforcement in unmarked cars. They cannot do traffic enforcement in plain clothes, and they cannot do. They have to track the data for every traffic stop. So it took them like about a year and a half to try to undo one of the ordinances. They didn't try to undo the other ones, but it took them about a year and a half to try to undo one of them. And I think that there's also a direct connection between the Memphis Police Department not doing pretextual stops and these people coming in to do all the things that they're not allowed to do. That is also an issue. We also talked about how the guy who is on the board for that large railroad company, Northern something.
I think you had it right. That sounds right. The
Northern
person.
Pacific. Yeah, he had a meeting with Trump and was talking about how the crime was so bad in Memphis and that he had to get in an armored truck to drive downtown from his hotel to where they were meeting that was 5 minutes away, which is also not fucking true. But still, I was like, this
But
is so true.
didn't your governors change that though? The last year or something like that?
The
The
pretextual
governor,
stop.
yeah, then they banned something to stop Memphis from
It
stopping it.
wasn't the governor, it was our state legislature. And actually, the bill was specifically about the bill was not specific at all. So that happened in what year is this? 20, yeah, this happened last year. So they wrote a bill to not allow any local government to prohibit police officers from doing anything outlined in like the state constitution or state law, even though Memphis has home rule, which means that we are allowed to create our own bills or create our own ordinances that are outside of what the state allows. And there's only like 8 cities that have home rule, and Memphis is the only one in West Tennessee that has it. So it's a very specific thing that most places don't even use at all. So we passed that ordinance because we had the right to pass that ordinance. And then they pushed for a bill that did not allow police to do anything. So not about traffic stops, didn't allow them to do anything. So then me and my friend Alex went up to the State House multiple days back to back to lobby them to change the bill or to not vote for the bill. And we were able to find a Republican who was willing to put an amendment that I wrote to hone the bill down to only be about traffic enforcement and traffic stops, because the way that it was written, it could apply to anything. And so I just like use talking points around, like, what if there's a specific thing like high speed chases that police officers do not need to be doing because it's dangerous. And a lot of these police departments have asked them to not do that. And that's a policy. If you pass this bill, it doesn't allow them to do that. And you're putting people's lives in danger. And a lot of them were like, oh yeah, that makes so much sense, because none of them read the bill. They don't usually read the bills. Unless you come and talk about a bill, they don't usually read any of them. They just pass them. So after he added that amendment, it also made it easier for us to sue them, because the law is specific to a very particular thing that we passed a bill for here in Memphis. So now we're working on that part of it. So we have this large FOIA request out right now, and we're working through a strategy of like what it would look like to possibly sue them or to possibly push like for some kind of other legal recourse. But it's a long process.
Thanks for laying that out. Also appreciate just the knowledge of the conditions locally. That's a thing that a lot of people say folks on the left need to develop more, is knowing your local community, knowing how the state legislature works. It's almost a stereotype that we don't know how these things work. So I appreciate you just explaining just how in depth you are with understanding your state and local policies. So I always admire that.
Yeah, you was partially right. It was like changed.
But I know that was, well, there's federal agencies actually. So we're talking about the federal level or the national level when it comes to a lot of this oppression, which I think is why it's relevant to discuss what's going on with the military right now with the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. So I dropped that link.
Yeah, I did find that. So do you want me to play the fat one first, or
let's start with the serious, and then we can jump into him calling people fat while not being able to do a chin up himself.
I got you. Okay, I'm gonna reload it so that it plays from the beginning.
No. It was, I mean, and also just hiding, when you say hiding the contradictions, really appreciated you highlighting that. Like, they don't read. They are not reading the things they pass. Like, they are collecting a check. They're kissing babies.
What did John say? You niggas don't read, beloved.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have the soundboard, but absolutely. The politicians just signing on bills.
You just don't read, beloved.
Oh, thank you. Exactly.
You're welcome. Okay, I got it put up for you. Hold on.
We have to be prepared for war, not for defense. We're training warriors, not defenders. We fight wars to win, not to defend. Defense is something you do all the time. It's inherently reactionary and can lead to overuse, overreach, and mission creep. War is something you do sparingly, on our own terms, and with clear aims. We fight to win. We unleash overwhelming and punishing violence on the enemy. We also don't fight with stupid rules of engagement. We untie the hands of our warfighters to intimidate, demoralize, hunt, and kill the enemies of our country. No more politically correct and overbearing rules of engagement. Just common sense, maximum lethality, and authority for warfighters. You kill people and break things for a living.
Kill people and break things for a living. Wow. That's funny. I don't even know if I don't think the U.S. military would even like to describe their work that way, at least based on their own documents and how they talk about their work historically. But what do y'all think about that? I think I see an interesting comment from Zenzi about this person's background that I think should be highlighted about assuming competence in white leadership. But I'm just curious when y'all saw that, or if y'all saw that, what it made you think.
Well, that's my first time seeing it. And I mean, I think in terms of the little I heard, I don't think this person saying anything new. any type of laws is normally orchestrated by them in a method that Marimba Ani says rhetorical ethic. Like the US and the people who the US control, they make laws only for their victims to follow. They don't follow that shit. So yeah, that person is doing nothing other than telling the truth. And but also, you know, I think as much as we try to master the English language, I think most of them motherfuckers ain't master the English language. They just be using words interchangeably and don't have a clarity around it. So yeah.
I can always tell when somebody doesn't know the full meaning of the words they're saying. They just heard people say it a lot and they just be saying it.
This guy is, yeah. I mean, a lot of Trump's people give that. Trump himself is always doing that. What was he? He was struggling to say. Oh my God. He was trying to say Tylenol the other day. It wasn't Tylenol. Acetaminophen. Yeah. First he said it like he just saw that word for the first time in his life, which is hilarious.
This is embarrassing.
Yeah, I have a running theory that Trump would not be able to pass the citizenship test. Like, I would actually pay money to see him take it.
I fully believe he would not be able to pass that.
Yeah. No
First
question.
of all, I might not be able to.
No, you'll see it. I thought I thought so too. And then you look at it and you're like, this is fine. The way you just broke down policy in Memphis, I think it's way more difficult than stuff like how many.
Now, Zenzi, she right. I don't think he can read either. Now I can read, so I do think I might be okay in that part.
He can't read well, but he can't read a teleprompter at the very least.
Something.
What was I about?
I got the other clip.
Yeah. You can pull up the second clip. I know Zenzi said something I thought was interesting. We just assume every white political leader is intelligent, serious, and rational. Hesketh is a former weekend news host with minimal military training. I think that's super important, especially with how they set up these leaders in the government, because that makes a lot of sense. I know there's that Malcolm quote that I love. A lot of us love because of what it means. But he's like, celebrities get put in power over our community. That's a trumpet player who's a leader. Show me a white leader that's a celebrity. And I know I generally agree with the ethos of what he's saying, but that's not, unfortunately, how that works. So, like, a lot of the white people in power now actually were celebrities, were in the public eye, were basically performers in that way. So hearing Hesketh was a weekend news host makes sense. I learned, what's his name? Zelensky was like a TV show host where he played a president before they installed him as president over the Ukraine. So again, like a lot of these, he's wearing all this military gear and all of that, but he was essentially running around on Modern Family or some shit in the Ukraine like a few years ago. So always funny to see Malcolm's quote does actually apply to the white community as well. Yeah, Reagan was an actor, Black Wookie. You're absolutely right. So was Trump. He was in Home Alone too.
Yeah.
Oh, there's more. Yeah, okay. Here we are.
It all starts with physical fitness and appearance. If the Secretary of War can do regular hard PT, so can every member of our joint force. Frankly, it's tiring to look out at combat formations, or really any formation, and see fat troops. Likewise, it's completely unacceptable to see fat generals and admirals in the halls of the Pentagon and leading commands around the country and the world. It's a bad look. It is bad, and it's not who we are. So whether you're an airborne ranger or a chairborne ranger, a brand new private or a 4-star general, you need to meet the height and weight standards and pass your PT test. And as the chairman said, yes, there is no PT test. But today, at my direction, every member of the joint force at every rank is required to take a PT test twice a year, as well as meet height and weight requirements twice a year, every year of service. Also today, at my direction, every warrior across our joint force is required to do PT every duty day. Should be common sense. I mean, most units do that already, but we're codifying it. And we're not talking like hot yoga and stretching. Real hard PT, either as a unit or as an individual. At every level, from the Joint Chiefs to everyone in this room to the youngest private, leaders set the standard. And so many of you do this already. Active, Guard, and Reserve.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated.
Okay, I found it. Amber, perfectly. If you want to pull up the TikTok right after that, it's the perfect timing. So I found him doing a fitness test with RFK Jr. First off, actually, who's older? Because I know RFK is actually a little bit older, so it is more impressive when some of our older folks can get up there and still do it. RFK Jr. is 71.
100 push-ups. You try to get under 5 minutes. How'd you do?
We got close. I was
We
about
got close.
525. You were right behind me.
We had a couple of Marines here, and we had our big Pete Bobby challenge
All right,
today.
Oh no, those chin-ups, nah,
Under
bro.
5 minutes. How'd you do?
We got close. I was
We
about
got close.
525. You were right behind me.
We had a couple of Marines here.
One beat 3 minutes, a couple beat 4 minutes. Pretty impressive.
It was President Trump who
That's-
inspired us to do this. This is the beginning of our tour, challenging Americans to get back in shape, eat better, but also you need to get out and exercise. And we have a challenge. There's another cabinet member.
All right, man. Okay, bro. This the dude telling people they need to get physically fit.
With them legs and full
Like, oh, he
Oh,
looked like he
man.
was trying to swim. Oh
I
man.
said, what is he? Is he okay?
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
the fat phobia is. Somebody said in the chat, the fat phobia is hard. The fat phobia is insane.
Yeah.
I was like, why is this the thing that you choose to hone in on? Like, you mad at you being fat. You're not mad at the fact that y'all are lame
Yep.
and that you suck and that y'all making up reasons to go to war.
Nah, it's got to be that you're out of shape. You know, everybody's got to be in shape. But I mean, man, it's impressive. First of all, I saw RFK Jr. hitting them shits. That was impressive. He's 71.
Man, I said, RFK did he be working out every day? He was hitting. I was like, whoa.
And he lost. So Pete Hesgeth, y'all, is 45. And he just got whooped in the physical fitness by a 71-year-old. And he's the Secretary of Defense. Oh man, but yeah, you're right, Jamon. Like, they have to find a community to shame. That's all it is.
That's the Ashy Knuckles. I agree. What is
What is a high
requirement?
requirement? That's another good point.
I think that he was making shit up. I don't think that there's a height requirement.
I don't know, but I do know they do have all sorts of ways to physically discriminate, or are trying to. And so that does sound like a way naturally to discriminate against certain populations, discriminate against women in the service, things of that nature. I saw Trump was passing a policy, or Hesgeth.
Since he said that is not impressive.
RFK Jr. I mean, at 71, even with cocaine, that's a little impressive.
What do you think, Geechee?
No.
He said, I'm not touching that.
No.
Simple hoe.
I think the other thing that he's passing, so yeah, they always pass this stuff to discriminate against people in the service, like they're reactionary. So even DEI in the military, which is terrible, as you said, because the military sucks, is still something they push back against. They don't want women in the military. They don't want trans folk, queer folk, anything that could, identity that can maybe make the military be more conscious of marginalized people. They do not want there. So another thing, and a lot of high school athletes deal with this. That's why I was talking about dress code last week with policing Black girls and policing Black children. If you shave, a lot of us Black men get razor bumps if we have to use a razor and that kind of thing. It's a really common condition. And so in the military, you get a special waiver so you don't have to shave. In high school, like in sports, we got it as well. So if you get razor bumps, you don't have to shave. I think Hesgeth was trying to make it so that the military no longer allows this and everybody has to be razor shaven, which I saw. I saw a Black serviceman talk about Chris Kyle, again, a butcher of brown children, but how he, never had his beard shaved, like it's a completely made up thing. But it's obviously to target Black servicemen and things like that to get them out the space. So just those kind of things that happen, even on fascism, they want their forces to be pure white stormtroopers.
They should quit anyways, but
Right.
I did just want to add one thing that he said when he was here in Memphis too, was like, it's so nice looking out across to all these nice beards. You know, service members aren't going to have those anymore, but it's so nice to see all those folks. It must be nice to be undercover or whatever. I said, not you spilling the tea, so now we know they're undercover if they got beards. Got you. I'm writing that down in a little notebook because we putting together like a little list of tips for people. I'm writing everything down. I said, he is not good at this job because he's not keeping shit secret. He putting all the tea out there, and that's fine because I'm gonna watch every time and just take my little notes. It's really interesting.
What's with that fetish on clean shaven though? I actually don't really understand it like that. It's weird, and I know all
I
the
honestly think it has to do with like the same way white men are obsessed with pedophilia. It's kind of similar.
You think it's a purity thing, like looking?
Yeah, like they're like very obsessed with like young girls or someone looking very young and like clean, no hair.
Yeah, I
I've
mean,
heard like in the Christian nationalist spaces, like that's how they like want their women to look, and it's really weird. Also, weird fact that I know because I live here in Tennessee, but East Tennessee has the most cases of incest than any part of Tennessee as a state, and it's committed by white men between the ages of 30 and 45. I know this because a white man in East Tennessee, that's a state rep, tried to pass a bill to remove like the data around incest and lower the crime statute.
gross. Jesus.
And they would not approve of the abortion bill having an exception for incest cases. And he was one of the people who argued against it.
Yeah, no, I mean he's arguing for his interests and his constituents'
They arguing for their people, child.
interests. That's
Geechee, I saw your face move when I said that. What do you think?
That's gross.
What do I think about the hairless fetish?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I always thought that came from a weird place. And yeah, I know people can do what they want with their bodies, but yeah, sometimes I want, yeah, I don't know if I want to get into the topic, but sometimes I wonder if people, non-men who desire to be hairless, even though they say that they like or appreciate it, if it's still not manipulated and or orchestrated by men, and they subconsciously accept it at that point. But yeah, I just always thought that was some weird shit.
I would like to see a study on like the psychops around women and the obsession with shaving everything on their bodies and how that has convinced people to do that, because I can see the level of like push to do it, and I'm always like, why do y'all want people's bodies to be like that? Like, why do you want me to get all the hair off my body? It's just not that serious to me.
So I think someone in the comment already kind of pointed out, but patriarchy in the West is very homoerotic. It's also very I don't even want, that sounds like it's good, but it's very pedophilic, I would say. I don't want to link homoerotic to that, but very pedophilic. So I mean, yeah, women are supposed to not have hair because little girls don't have hair and that kind of thing. I definitely see that link between this purity idea and women not having their natural hair, right? I think anything, a lot of times women having their natural bodies, particularly adult women, doesn't work for men who have that, I don't want to even call it a fetish, but that like exploitative fetish on young girls and that kind of thing. But I'm a little confused on the men, because it works on both sides. So like no US presidents, for example, have facial hair in this era. And I wonder, like, part of it, I definitely think is that thing we're talking about, that pedophilic kind of patriarchy. But I also have to feel like this is a PR thing. Like
it's like the way you're supposed to look, like clean shaven.
Right. Yeah, because like it's just like Obama had no face. Nobody I in my lifetime that's been a president has had facial hair.
So really quickly, and before we move on, I wonder, because I know this meme curation of that dude speaking, and people gonna talk about and joke about what he said and all these other things, but I wonder if y'all can engage in a little bit of the seriousness of that moment of pretty much Trump preparing the United States for war on all its enemies, right? Black people, if it goes any whatever. And I wonder if you think that organizations and people on the left are prepared to have the type of response that our ancestors had at a time when there was high war consciousness, Vietnam and all these other things, especially as it relates to the entry into military engagement. Although it still has an economic context of why Black people are joining, and probably more so than racial and class analysis. But yeah, I'm just curious if you think that what's happening, again, we can brush it off as a joke or whatever, but what's happening, do you think we're ready to kind of like deal with that as organizations and people in the US?
I don't think we're prepared at all, and I think that that's one of my anxious points, or like one of my concerns, is that people are going to get left behind because people aren't prepared. And I feel like when it comes to like the actual time, if they're not ready, people are not going to try to help them. They're just going to leave them, and that really worries me. But I definitely don't think we're prepared. I think that people are just now grappling with the reality in like the last like few months.
That's a good question. I take it two ways. I take it one way in terms of, are we prepared logistically? Like, is our infrastructure set up, our organizations where they need to be? Is our ecosystem and pipeline of organizers in our community set up that way? Do we have community self-defense, like Amber was talking about before? And to that, no, right? Obviously, logistically, we are cooked right now, and we're trying to fix that. But I also take it in terms of consciousness, in terms of, are we aware of this fight? Are we aware of the struggle we're inheriting? And in that way, I would say, yes, some organizations are there. Some organizations are conscious. Some organizations are making those connections internationally. But I think we even saw it this week as we're dedicating our remixes to Assata Shakur. And some of us are aware of her legacy. Some of us are aware of what she left for us and are going back to get it, Sankofa. But I think for those who aren't, I think for those who are still trying to use Assata for clout, I think for folks who are still not willing to engage in serious study, nah. And that's a huge problem in the nonprofit industrial complex, is this very strong antagonism to studying these people and who they actually are and the movements they actually wanted us to take on. So that's how I see that.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I think so we just finished Brian Quoba's event in Atlanta.
Yeah, I heard that I was talked about a lot.
By who and to who?
Just go ahead and get you. Don't fall for the baits.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck. But yeah, so I think just reading that book, I mean, I think it's hella prevalent. Again, this man lived from 1883 to 1926, 27. But like just the conflict that they had then, even though this could lead to a large contingent of people. I think I've been in, kind of brushing up on some stuff that Robin D.G. Kelly said when he talked about like solidarity is not a market exchange, right? So when I'm thinking about internal conflicts and inner org are connecting superficially, like they are all connected, but they're not really connected, and it's not about trading favors or building cliques. It's about building a shared vision of liberation rooted in care, responsibility, and accountability. And what I find is like, I think people are more focused on clicks over clarity. And then it's like personal advancement, even within organization, as opposed to like the larger political transformation. And so I don't think that we are on a large side ready. And then I don't think we are even ready to get people ready. Cause like we spending a lot of time with the internal shit and the organizational stuff. And I don't know that we're moving people the way that we think that we are.
Well, I know when I read like George and Assata, they do talk about some of these conflicts. So it's not like they're new. They existed in the past. So in that way, they are actually giving us ways to move forward. George calls it the petty ideological debates we're going to have before we recognize that fascism's already here. Those kind of things. So I definitely hear you. I see it that way. I also see it as that civilizational crisis of methodology we always talk about on this channel, where a lot of people actually do want to connect to these things. And there have been so many counterinsurgent traps set up that even when we do try for an authentic connection, folks don't have the network to do that. So I say that in the form of a lot of folks trying to honor Assata Shakur. Same way a lot of folks might try and honor Malcolm. And while he was alive, we have the autobiography, we have his comrades, we have all those things. But you give the state some time, you give the bourgeois some time, and then you get A Life of Reinvention by Marable. And so I remember my big brother, when he read the autobiography, he was like, yeah, some stuff is inaccurate in that, you got to read. And then the thing he recommended was Marable. And that was early on, because again, all he was trying to do was study. And that was the next thing thrown in his face. Until Jared and Todd and all of them come together and make A Lie of Reinvention, we have a lot of counterinsurgency when people are trying to go back and get it, or go back and learn from our elders. So I even think of that locally with Assata. When we're trying to honor her, a lot of folks immediately are looking at Assata Taught Me by Professor Donna Murch. And again, it's a book. It has Assata on the cover. It's by somebody who's done history on the Panthers. So you think in your organization, that would be a safe book to study. That would be something that you can bring in. But as we critiqued on this channel, he doesn't talk about Assata's work. He doesn't mention any of Assata's comrades. You wouldn't read that book, and I know Kamal Siddiqui's still incarcerated. I don't think. If someone's read it and I'm wrong, let me know. But I've skimmed and I didn't see it. So this is the kind of stuff that I think when a lot of people want to go and actually do activity, they run into that. Same with Malcolm. Not many people know the James Earl Jones narrated 1974 documentary that I recommend. So I had to recommend that in place of One Night in Miami, which is a terrible movie down here. But again, Miami, Malcolm, what is people's consciousness?
What's One Night in Miami about?
It's a movie about the lyric theater. Overtown, historic Black neighborhood, used to be Harlem of the South. A bunch of Black leaders, Black celebrities, all descend on Miami for one night. So Malcolm's there taking pictures of Muhammad Ali, who's boxing. Sam Cooke is there, and I think Jim Brown, Geechee, is that the other person, the football player in One Night in Miami? Jim Brown is there too. So it's just a movie about these men having one night in this hotel in Miami, and they're just conversing with each other. And they use it as a way to talk about the movement, the struggles, and all that. But it's just bullshit. I mean, there's a line in there about Malcolm, you're only this way because you light skinned, like is what Sam Cooke, I think, says to Malcolm about his politics and his revolutionary, Black nationalism. So I already see in the audience that John is terrible. So that's Geechee, another struggle I see is the counterinsurgency of it, when people actually want to go find the sources and the struggles that our ancestors left for us to take on. They are met with cleverly designed counterinsurgent commercial products.
Yeah, I mean, I think me and Jared had that conversation often around like methodology, but I'm willing to even like back up a little bit and just make sure that we have the right niggas in the room.
Right.
Because I feel like the vetting, we ain't vetting nobody, bro. Niggas is in and out of different things with no where your grandmama stay and who peoples you are. I don't know about all that.
Right. Yeah.
They don't be doing all that no more.
And that was the question. So again, like when I go back to Assata, when I talk about our logistics on up, I love the book. The book's amazing, man. It's so good. I love where she talks about joining the Panthers and walking into the office, and
what's the name of the book?
Assata, the autobiography. Assata's homework. Yeah. She talks about going into Panthers office and how they ain't have no type of security for real, and their books were all over the place. Like they had membership forms and fundraising and all that. So Assata just went in, like a lot of us, walks into an organization. It's not some perfectly well-oiled machine, but you figure out how can you contribute. And then you notice the things that make an org more serious, which is record keeping, which is not letting people's files float all over the office and who knows where, and that kind of thing.
I had the audio book, but I'm like on like the third or fourth chapter. I do not deal with listening to violence very well. So I think I actually should have read the book versus listening to it because it's very violent in the beginning part. And I said, "Ooh, I'm not used to this."
Yeah.
So it took me a very long time. So then I bought the book and I was like, I'm just gonna read the book because I feel like listening to it, I didn't know I was gonna like. I wasn't gonna like it.
Yeah, the torture in the beginning is a little rough. It's not. I don't
And
think
so
it
I
stays that
asked
way
my
though.
friend because we're doing like a book group or whatever. I was like, "Is this what the whole book about?" She was like, "No, you got to keep going." I was like,
Yeah,
"Okay,
it's
going."
not. The first part is shit. But yeah.
So I kept going. And I was like, "Okay, it's getting better." But I said, "Oh shit, my ears."
Yeah, I mean, I think what's amazing about that book is that the Black radical tradition of the autobiography, like that's one of the first literary forms that we have. It's always designed for Black people to be able to pick it up, any of us, and to see ourselves in the story and to understand, our historical mission. And so I think Assata as a book absolutely does that. Any organizer can pick it up and find themselves in that book. But to Geechee's
I
point,
agree.
again, does that exist in this era? I'm sure it does because I know how radicals and revolutionaries are. So I'm sure someone is writing something like that. I'm sure there's someone behind the walls who's working on a piece like that. So I don't want to say it doesn't exist, but at that level of popularity, I don't think we're getting a 21st century Assata just yet, or a 21st century autobiography of Malcolm X. I think it'd be hard to produce that in this era, and for it to resonate in the same way, but not impossible, just hard.
Listen, man, I think we was talking about this last night. So we were rehearsing for Cherie's and Jihad's play this weekend. Well, tonight, Saturday and Sunday, and we talked about like one of Asada's experience in the party. Oh, I'm sorry, in the organizations and party. And then if you couple that with Safia Bakari's, like you will see, I think you will get a really, really good glimpse on like why and how. And then I think the scary part is like you would begin to see the recreation of particular things, because at this point, like how we define, like we talk about the white boy saying all those words, but how we define political maturity right now. And I feel like if you ask multiple folks, it'll be like a different conversation. Some of it will be stopped at analysis. Some of it, a lot of it wouldn't be going into interactions among each other and things like that. So I just think, like it's having a space to have like struggle around words and concepts and in the application of words and concepts. Like I think we just stop it at like who sound the most best and who can write the best or shit like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
So I was
think
going to ask. Go ahead, Amber. Sorry.
No, so I agree with that. I think that is a big thing. Like people aren't struggling around like topics and words as much as more anymore. I think that was one of the things I really enjoyed about Black August this year was like getting to do that. And I see I feel like you can see the benefits of it like long term, but people want to skip that because they're like, no, we're just in this, very important moment. This is rapid response. We got to da 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 da. I was like, yeah, but I think that it's not gonna click for you if you don't have like the understanding of these concepts about why militarization is bad. But also, again, people don't be listening to me, so I just be letting it, just let
Well,
it.
in terms of that, getting the right people in the room, and Rad mentions it in the comments. So Mumia, the political prisoner, writes behind the wall. Yeah, I did mention people who write behind the wall on purpose. Mumia is that older generation, though. So I am talking from somebody, millennial and up, that 21st century age cohort. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, the political prisoners who write behind the wall are still providing us a lot of clarity. I know Naeem of the Pendleton 2 also writes. So they provided analysis on the Kirk shooting, which I got to see, which was really helpful. So I think that's another point, Geechee, is like who's in the room is oftentimes limited by the fact that a lot of these people who would be challenging us and pushing us for clarity are locked up behind walls. So we actually have to find them and bring them into the rooms. So that becomes another thing. That's why on BLM, I wanted us to read a Coley. I'm always trying to make us read what they wrote, because some of it is you can't really get around these loopholes and these debates and you can't use clout to get around some of their demands. Like they're very specific and concrete. So yeah.
Somebody in the chat said, I listened to you, Amber. I'm not talking about y'all. I'm making a joke, but I appreciate it. But I do actually have to go so I can go do my little patrol shift. And if anybody wants to see anything that's happening in Memphis, I'm trying to post more real-time updates. We've been posting in the mornings, at least by like 9 a.m., like the highly saturated areas and like taking pictures of the cars and stuff so people know what they look like. Because I know folks are really like weary of unmarked cars and like getting pulled over. They getting pulled over like by Mitsubishis and shit. Like, and not even getting put over by pickup trucks. Like it's like regular ass cars. So people are definitely afraid. Stop calling me officer.
Officer.
Wow, work.
He called me that shit earlier. Chill out.
The people's officer.
I mean, you say you patrolling shit, so go ahead.
Go ahead, patrol.
Patrol for the because my rapid response alert thing been going on since we've been on the show. So I'm going to go respond to some sightings. But yeah.
Speaking of the Panther legacy, go ahead. Patrol the community. Appreciate you, Amber.
Appreciate you guys. It's so good to see you again, Geechee.
All right, peace.
Good to see
you.
you.
Got to hang out with some Memphis people yesterday. I heard it was fun.
Who?
Amber keep tabs.
Brian ain't from Memphis.
You know what I mean.
Nah.
He won't let you claim it.
He's not from Memphis. Yeah, but yeah, nah, that's my people's. So
same shit. It's all right. All right, bye guys.
All right.
Peace. Geechee. What was I gonna? Oh yeah, I love that conversation about political maturity. I was gonna ask, what do you look for as a sign of political maturity when you see somebody or you hear someone say that?
Yeah, I think the ability to either engage in some type of structural effort and an ability to consistently check in and make sure that all involved are very clear on the objectives and the aims of like the unit or the progress or whatever. I feel like, again, I think there's more people who are in, and I don't know if we're like more focused on developing people. I think political maturity will show people who are committed to development. So we can say, oh, this person is not radical, liberal, whatever. And then we just stop there. And then we don't really have any way to develop them, knowing that, like, hell, if the nigga in your organization is liberal and you don't have the capacity to develop them, how the fuck you gonna organize people who in a sea of liberal people or so I think it just it's a clear direction of people that has a track record of developing other people. And it's tangible. You can see it's a tangible development as opposed to, like, you know. So if I'm in your organization, you come in and you do a particular thing and you have the capacity to do that, like, it should be clear if I have a hand in developing you or not. And I think sometimes, like, you could just get some really good people and don't have any kind of like a structure or infrastructure to develop. So I would say, but the political maturity is to be able to put all the shit that you've read and experience that you have into effective practice and building cohesive spaces that you're in. So. Yeah,
that's exactly what I thought of when you said it. To me, politically mature people, at least when I think of our elders, are usually people who, the Ella Baker thing, they're leaders who have the capacity to develop leadership in others and see people where they are. I think one example that came to me on this platform was with Deruba, when somebody had a disagreement with him, some sort of critique, and all of us have, for whatever reason, had people who throw shots at us or have critiques, or might even be a little antagonistic. And so how we respond to that, to me, is a sign of political maturity, when you can see where that person's coming from, see if it's good intentions, and then bring that person to unity with you. So I remember when Deruba hopped on, I think he'd been critiqued about one of his analysis or something like that. And he could have been, I'm an elder, I'm BLA, I've done all this, like, you don't know who you're talking to, da-da-da. He easily could have done that, but he was on so humble and like charming and funny. And again, talking to someone in a younger generation than him, so almost talking like an elder in that way. And to me, that was a sign of political maturity. You didn't blow up, you didn't try and flex on anybody. You try to arrive at unity.
Yeah, I think so one of the other things that Brian is calling a Harrisonian a methodology is before you know a thing, right? And it's in line with no investigation, right to speak, no right to speak. But before you know a thing, or even present that you know a thing, you should be able to study 10 different people who know it differently and learn their arguments and then say you know a thing, right? And I feel like, again, in terms of, I don't think that we are engaging in active listening. And one of the things that we do in our study group and barter and build whenever we get back cranking, but just in the study group locally, is we have these developed questions and everybody answer a question. They got up to 3 minutes uninterrupted to answer the question, right? And then after that, like, people have up to 7 minutes to ask clarifying questions. So there's no argument, there's no debate or whatever, but it's like you actually have to be able to lay out what you're saying in 3 minutes. And then anything that you missaid or whatever, like those clarifying questions is going to not only challenge you to be more clear, but it's also going to show you how other people have the capacity to active listen on that. So it's like a intentional tailored structure to build something that you actually would need. So how do you engage in conversations where you're not dominating what's being said, how it's being said, and like you're not really listening to anybody else? And so even as I think about like the political maturity of an organization or people, it's like back to the thing that Assata said, and we was talking about earlier, like how do you engage new members? Like, is it something that, niggas like, oh, I'm black, okay, well, you in? Or are you engaged in one-on-ones and seeing how their work and what their objectives fit not only the organizational goals, but some of like the current goals? Like, are you engaged in like constantly political education? Is there like an onboarding process that can say, hey, this is the structure of our organization, this is the pathway to leadership? Is there a practicum? Like, I know, in Judas of the Black Messiah, they talked about how like you had to do a particular level of political education or some type of probationary period, which obviously Assata and Safia tell you that shit was abandoned. But is there a space where you're not only going through a practicum or probationary period, but you're also like receiving collective feedback from everybody that's involved in these projects? Do you have clarity around decision making from the ground to the top, like who's making decisions, why and how, who's held accountable, how people are held accountable, and again, like last, like, is there a clear path to jegnaship, and I intentionally use that word, that allows people to again deal with the contradictions instead of like isolating and pathologizing people. So I think all of those things are kind of integrated in what I would say is political maturity, because reading the books is cool and having the histories and being associated with other orgs, all that shit is cool, but it just seems like that shit should be able to be applied and it should be evidence in the people that you are engaged with.
Yeah, organization or organizing is relationship building, no question. So I hear everything. I also really like your point about structure, and these are the kind of questions that if I were to tell younger organizers looking for a political home what to ask, it would be that. Like, what is the pathway to leadership? What are the structures involved? How do they engage political education in a way that's open and trying to make people learn and join the organization and contribute? Really appreciate that. And then again, to bring it back to Assata, I love how she challenged how we show up for each other. So again, like this idea that in orgs, you have to be in relationship. You have to show up for your community. And so again, you can't just be drop in, do the work, and then leave. Like, that just doesn't work. You have to be connected to the community. You have to talk to people one-on-one. So Safia says that the reason why the drug dealer and the preacher are winning more than us is because they remember they have to be on the block every single day, moving people toward their ideology. So yeah, I hear that point. I also just hear how we hold those relationships, how we bring people in. So I loved how Assata, as someone who does political education and values it, critiqued some of the ways the Panthers did it, or some of the Panthers, not all of them. But she pointed out how she hated that kind of masculine, like patriarchal, militant posturing at our people, of yelling at them, of not to say you don't need the militant energy, but of like trying to rattle them awake and that kind of thing. She said that she liked when you spoke to the community as people with love and respect, just trying to give them information. That was her preferred style of communication. And I even see that now in some spaces as well. That one form of we know we're going to pass this information down. And then that other form of, well, I'm here for the community. I want to speak to you with a sort of love and respect, but with a firmness, you know, that's clear about where we at. So.
Yeah, I think thank you for that point. Zinzi said we can't assume that an organizer is wiser because they are older. We keep making that mistake. Yeah, ageism is disgusting in spaces. Like rather it be, yeah, it's just disgusting. So
I think it's tough. Yeah, I think definitely for people our age, there's no excuse. I talked to when we were reading Revolutionary Suicide for Black August. One thing that came up was Eldridge and why was he given so much power and authority within the Black Panther Party. And one thing my comrade brought up, he was like, you know, Eldridge was like a decade older than a lot of them. So there was an age difference in authority, and I think with youth, especially, they are vulnerable to that. But I do hear you, like we grown as hell. It's super weird to just idolize somebody because they 1 or 2 generations above you. That don't make no sense.
yeah, I mean, I think there's so many things that are thrown at us at a time that I think one of the things that, again, Safia and maybe even Assata, I think she said as well, is like, I think we look at history and we be like, oh yeah, COINTELPRO and whatever. And like, I feel like just sitting and meditating with the fact that they did not know what the fuck was going on. They knew about it afterwards. And they said afterwards, like they was able to build their analysis. And so it's like, imagine what type of shit that could be going on right now, that it will take us a while to be like, oh shit, this is what was happening, or this was going on. Because it's not like, you know, one of Bob Imhotep's in Baltimore, he was like, when he was in prison, one of his elders was like, yo, do not underestimate these motherfuckers who can convince you that they went from the caves to the moon. They are highly sophisticated. So don't act like your enemy is just some peon or weak, you know, you can just be barking all the devil. Yeah, but the motherfuckers are sophisticated and they're very highly scientific. And so you don't know, you possibly couldn't know what the fuck be going on right now. But
yeah, that's a contradiction. They're idiots, but they are also brilliant, especially at what they do. I appreciate Michael Parenti, the better Chomsky, for writing about that, because he also talks about it in the face of imperialism, how they even present themselves, or the media, liberal media presents them as like stumbling or making mistakes, or just this inept empire that doesn't know what they're doing. And he's like, no, the people who started the Vietnam War knew exactly what they were doing. They knew that they were sacrificing your kids to make money. Like, this isn't a mystery. So I agree. Like, Trump is a bumbling idiot. But when he talks about empire, when he talks about the shit that he has to do to maintain power, no, it's pretty clear, and it's pretty devastating, I would say, in terms of how it works.
Yeah, I think when I was it's probably the U.S. president, but there's other positions where when somebody is like the face or the voice of something, and really it's like the think tanks and the grunt men in the ground and the worker and the organizer. It's like, by the time this motherfucker's getting up and speaking, they're saying what the fuck ever, but they do not know the day-to-day. Somebody hand them the paper and be like, nigga, say this. Now he might deviate from that shit, but the reality is like, there's all type of work. So these niggas wouldn't be developing think tanks. This is the one of the reasons why all the people who read Amos Wilson, Blueprint for Black Power, chapter 9 and 10, especially policy formation, is the most important chapter. When you really understand how think tanks have been governing these motherfuckers for a long time, and them niggas, then they still around, they're the same think tanks. You can talk about Heritage Foundation, where they're the same think tank. And so, and if you just research think tanks, just go on the page, like all these people that you've seen walking around these campuses, they end up being hired for the think tanks, and a whole bunch of these thinking motherfuckers. So at some point, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's 100% like the institution building. Again, our enemy has institutional memory. Yet we're always told like Project 2025, but what foundation is that? Oh, I knew that foundation 10 years ago. they plan for the long game. They're telling their kids to rule for 50 years, 100 years. This is how these kids are raised. And our kids are being told financial literacy bullshit, survive for your generation, maybe generational wealth, whatever that means. But they're talking about ruling land, territory for 50 plus years and making a plan for that. The institution building, when I went to American Enterprise Institute back in grad school, I got to see these think tanks in person. And again, the same way we are trying in our communities. When we go to our community centers and you go and you see Assata on the wall and you see Steve Biko on the wall and all those things, that's us. We're doing that. But just know at the think tank at AEI, there is an 80-foot, I don't know how expensive mural of Reagan and Margaret Thatcher that we walked in and talked by as they're telling us that they're this unbiased. And again, this idea we talked about with the content creators, that they think they're independent. So we had a bunch of people. I actually talked to people who at AEI who thought they were independent thinkers, and they're trying to destroy teachers unions. But they're like, "But this is my thought. I wasn't told to do this." So the idea that it can make new people, it can reproduce itself with new thinkers, is a huge part of the think tanks I think about. The fact that they're multi-million-dollar institutions, and to your point about how they're able to develop policy, I think about the capitalist mode of production, where you can break things up. Where instead of making the entire shoe, now someone's really good at making heels, someone's really good at making the laces, someone's really good, like that kind of thing. And think tanks to me are very similar to that. Like you said, Trump gets the piece of paper with Project 2025 on it, and it tells them how to tear apart abortion, Medicaid, all these things. But on the ground level, there is one person dedicated to studying abortion. There is one person dedicated, like the Capital Research Group, to studying our organizations. So they're able to break it down category by category and develop policy for it. Whereas, in our organizations, as you said, sometimes we even struggle with our policy asks in the first place.
Yeah, and they use the whole gamut of all of their schools. So the psychologists and all the other people, how people can respond to messaging, how you got to target, what you got to say. Obamacare from Romney Care and any other care. So they know exactly what people are going to respond to. Their media and movie experts have tested us enough to know.
They still cooking us,
motherfucking lab rats.
What's the thing y'all gotta go watch? There was some. Oh, is it Fort Bragg Cartel or something like that Renee's been talking about? Yeah. I gotta check those out. Yeah. I don't know. Is Sherry gonna be able to make it to?
Oh, my bad. I meant no. So because it was kind of late last night, and then we supposed to go early. Yeah. They're gonna try to get as much sleep as possible, so they're not gonna be able to make it. But
respect.
Y'all can make it if y'all have the time. If y'all can find the time, come out to see the play at Push Push Theater in Atlanta. There's gonna be Brother Jihad doing his play, and also Cherie she's doing a solo play. I watched the play. I watched the dress rehearsal last night. Nigga in there crying.
Wow. Okay.
Shit was going on. They're gonna do it. But and then Jihad joint was pretty dope. And then he has a 2-man show with another one of his brothers from the Jericho movement. So CMB Atlanta's political education committee, we busy ass week. So we just finished the Brian Cobo event. We got this one coming up, and then at the end of the month we have Beneath the Mouth and Mumia and Jennifer Black Reader on anti-prison. So 3 shows tonight, tomorrow night, and then Sunday, I think around 1. So
that's dope.
Tap in.
Happy to hear that. I had some, random stories from throughout the week. I talked about the Justice Department deleting that report on white supremacist violence. I don't know if you wanted to get into that real quick. I dropped a link in the chat.
Oh, it's in the chat. Okay.
Yeah, the Guardian. And while you pull that up, I wanted to shout out some of the things I'm seeing in the chat. Sounds the same elsewhere. Dropped 2 great recommendations. Yes, I am still talking about millennial and up, so that's why I've been saying 21st century autobiographies. But for Gen X New Africans, there's Samkia Shakur's Monster, which is a really good work. Someone again brought up Mamiya already. which is the fact that he's putting out work. He's got Murder Incorporated 3 volumes, things of that nature. And then I think the last resource I really liked that someone just dropped was Constructive Criticism, a handbook by Gracie Lyons, or Lyons if I mispronounced that. But I'm going to definitely check that one out after the broadcast because I've never seen it before. But as we've been studying critique and self-critique, I think that could be a really great resource. So I'm going to check it out. Appreciate the chat as always.
So the U.S. Department removes study findings. Far-right extremists commit far more violence. Report findings. Right-wing extremists have killed more Americans than other domestic terrorist groups. Vanished from DOJ website. I'll read a couple. The U.S. Justice Department or Injustice Department has scrubbed. I can't ever say that word because I'm from Charleston. Scrub. We say screet and all that other thing. A study from its website concluding that far-right extremists have killed far more Americans than any other domestic terrorist group. Just days after a gunman fatally shot the prominent conservative activist Charlie Kirk. The report, now archived, titled that NIJ research tells us about domestic terrorism, vanished from the Department of Justice website between 11 and 12, the 11th and 12th of September, according to Jason Palladino, an independent investigative reporter who first wrote the story. Kirk, 31-year-old Turning Point USA founder and Trump ally, was gunned down while speaking at Utah Valley University on September the 10th.
The Vanish study, if you want to just the next paragraph, the Vanish study opened with since 1990, far-right extremists have committed far more ideologically motivated homicides than far-left or radical Islamic extremists, including 227 events that took down more than 520 lives. In the same period, far-left extremists committed 42 ideologically motivated attacks that took 78 lives. So I haven't seen the report yet because I'm always like, what's far-left? And, I actually want to look into
radical left, all of you.
Right, because again, Trump called everybody to the left. Who on the left was taking life? How are those counted? Is Aaron Bushnell, for example, self-immolating a life that was taken by far-left violence? Like, I actually want to know how they're measuring this. So, yeah, just need some due diligence on the report. But the report was deleted, of course. So, a little harder to do that, or it's archived, I guess. Yeah. Oof. I mean, this becomes the thing. I think liberals get into this a lot. Obama, for example, the Department of Education was really good at like asking for data. So like the main thing was with the Office of Civil Rights, they weren't going to do shit, but they were at least recording data, trying to pull together. He's a good liberal in that way. So like the Office of Civil Rights was tracking like suspension data, for example. So you had a federal thing you could cite that proved your point that black kids were getting suspended or something like that. And basically Republicans are like, we don't even want that. So they get rid of it. So it's not like the Office of Civil Rights acts on anything that gets done, but it does at the very least put out like kind of think tank like reports that give you information on the state of the country. And so I think it's really, if people are talking about the differences between Republicans and Democrats, that would be one that I point out. So like in this, they just don't want the information present at all, even though pretty sure we know the far right does more murders than the far left in this country. Like that's not a mystery. We don't need a DOJ report for that kind of information. But yeah.
I think it kind of goes back to the other conversation. Is like, my nigga, like the far right put us in all the wars. Like there's I don't know the far left when there's any wars. Like that doesn't make any sense. So like body count, like what?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. We're being super narrow and only talking about terrorism, and even doing that, it's still more of the right. I think one thing, and then again, the whole point that everyone keeps pointing out, which is that the federal government, local police, state police, all of these people are embedded in these organizations as well. So it becomes a matter of them policing themselves. The same with the deep state, where they're all entangled with each other, trying to blackmail each other and that kind of thing. So I know the thing that stood out to me was, again, they're only defining it as whatever they call it, far right terrorists. But historically, the federal government also works with these people, not just having members in them, But I know when people look up COINTELPRO, I talk about 6 targets. And in those 6 targets, I include like the American Indian movement, things like that. But originally, they talked about white hate groups as one of the targets of COINTELPRO. But then when Deruba talks about the data, 90% of it was put on the Black liberation movement. So they weren't really targeting these things. But one thing the COINTELPRO papers talk about is that even though they listed white terrorist groups as one of their 6 targets, they actually would pull informants and things from these terrorist groups and use them strategically if they needed an attack that they didn't want to have any ties to, that kind of thing. So just historically, I always think about the fact that they also use these white supremacist groups. They don't use the far left groups in the same way. They weren't using the Panthers to destroy other civil rights groups or something like that. That's just not their MO. So
I don't trust none of them. Not at all.
At all. We got some star comments. I don't know if you wanted to go over those. And then I had a good liberalism, since we've been doing the definitions thing, video we could talk about. But
yeah. No, yeah, I think Ntume was saying this point earlier. The key to remember, and as we was talking about the enemies, is that the enemy is better resourced. What is capitalism inherently? It extracts to waste away the potential of revolution and take the material to dominate. It's cruel didactic.
Yeah, 100%. I talk about that sometimes when I don't like that comparison to the right. Like, oh, the right said the thing, the right or the rallies, the right. I mean, yeah, the police let them in. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it's a lot easier to do those things if you are supported by the state. So we'll never, in that way, grow. We won't have an AstroTurf movement where like the state is making Nazi bots that make our movement look bigger than it is. Like that's not going to happen as well. That takes resources. But to that point, they are mobilizing these resources in ways that don't necessarily make sense. So just wanted to bring that up. All right, we've been doing the definitions thing, although Amber's missing, but Amber has the glossary that we've been updating. But I thought this little exchange these two had on liberalism was pretty good. Dr. Jackson Hickel and Michael Mez, I believe, talk about this. Won't be anything we haven't heard. It won't be anything different than what Assata says in her autobiography about liberals. But I think it's always great to hear it broken down. So
said in your work that liberalism is actually dead. What do you mean?
It's an interesting political ideology where basically it's got 2 major commitments. On the one hand, it has a commitments to things like human rights, the rule of law, individual freedoms, even things like a little bit of welfare and let's say ecological protection and things like that.
Sounds great.
Sounds great. At the same time, liberalism is committed to capitalism. And this is essential to liberal ideology, is that ultimately they are committed to the processes of ensuring that production is controlled by capital and maintaining the conditions for capital accumulation. The problem here is that when these things come into conflicts, then liberal leaders will resolve the contradictions in favor of capital accumulation. And this is what explains the fact that liberals have this reputation of being hypocrites. They're full of spectacular contradictions. You get people who are committed to things like liberal rights and etc., then openly backing a genocide. Like, what is anyone supposed to make of that? I mean, this is a very severe contradiction. And then what happens is that, crucially, liberals are anti-socialist. And so they'll do everything possible to crush actual progressive socialist movements.
Why is that? Why are liberals anti-socialist?
Because of their ultimate, most important commitment, which is to capital accumulation. They will never let that be threatened. And that's why we saw, like, when somebody as beloved as Bernie Sanders was a few years ago in the primaries, they had to band together and crush him. Now, this is interesting because when you're crushing socialist movements and you're ultimately also yourself crumbling and failing, then what does that do? It leaves the political vacuum open to who? The far right, right? And so liberalism gives way to fascism over and over and over. It's like clockwork. Fascists, their core principle also is capital accumulation, right? But they just dispense with the liberal values. And so liberals are actually more comfortable handing power over to the far right because they're confident that at least capital is going to be protected than they are handing power to socialists who will maintain their liberal values of rule of law and
Mm.
rights and things like that, but will not protect capital accumulation. And this is why we see this constant back and forth between the far right liberals, the far right liberals. The fascists take control, they create total social chaos. Everyone's like, this is far too extreme for us. Let's go for that safe center option again. They vote for the liberals come back into power. Rinse and repeat over and over.
I love that explanation. Very well done, very dialectical. Explains how the liberals, which is a right-wing move, gives way to the far right. Definitely like that breakdown. Again, though, it's not new. Assata talks about this. George Jackson talks about this. Malcolm talks about this. And I think to this day, a lot of people, even on the left, really struggle with that fox and wolf analogy that Malcolm made, and understanding what the fox means, right? What is that actually talking about? So I think Dr. Hickel explained that pretty well. How does liberalism give way to fascism? So we got the remix glossary that we've been talking about. It's been updated. There's a first tab which just has all the short definitions. I'll drop it in the chat as always. And then there's another, or Geechee, maybe you can. And then there's another tab now that has kind of the fuller entries that we can go into, because people were asking for a few terms. I know Stono brought up some as well. But on liberalism, I thought we could read Assata's quote, which is one of my favorites.
And that's this right quote right here, right?
Yeah.
So you want to read the whole thing or just the quote?
Just a quote.
Okay. Yeah, I have never really understood exactly what a liberal is, since I have heard liberals express every conceivable opinion on every conceivable subject. As far as I can tell, you have the extreme right, who are fascists, racist, capitalist dogs like Ronald Reagan, who come right out and let you know where they're coming from. And on the opposite end, you have the left, who are supposed to be committed to justice, equality, and human rights. And somewhere between those is the liberal. As far as I'm concerned, liberal is the most meaningless word in the dictionary. History has shown me that as long as some white middle class people can live high on the hog, take vacations to Europe, send their children to private schools, and reap the benefits of their white skin pathology, then they are liberals. But when times get hard and money gets tight, they pull off the liberal mask, and you think you're talking to Adolf Hitler. They feel sorry for the so-called underprivileged, just as long as they can maintain their own privileges.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite quotes on liberalism. Like, man, Assata gives you so many definitions, just casually in the autobiography. But that's one of my favorite quotes. So again, I understand why liberalism is so confusing to people, but I do think one, thinking of it as a right-wing ideology is really important. And then also pointing out that like it exists to be hypocritical. It exists to be destabilizing like that. Is important. And I also have that. I know there's the Honani K. Trask quote as well, which again just talks about how liberalism can't deal with colonialism, or it was designed to help maintain colonialism, is more accurate. So that's another thing that I appreciated Hickel talking about, which is that socialists, communists, Marxists, liberal values are fine for them because they're actually trying to make them material. They want human rights, like actually. They want control of the means of production, like actually. So all the things you talk about wanting, like freedom of speech and all those things, are things that socialists have a material way of making in the real world. But liberals don't have to do that. They don't have any sort of material commitment. So I love Trask's quote where she says, allegedly inclusion in the U.S. gave us rights. That these alleged rights were forced onto resisting peoples at the point of cannon and in the face of conquering armies is ignored in the case of natives, like my own people, because the ideology of rights cannot abide the reality of imperialism. And that's another quote that I just think is fire. The reality of rights cannot abide. The ideology of rights cannot abide the reality of imperialism. So.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a intention behind using it, or a rule around using it as you relate to people who are not in radical spaces and then people who are in radical spaces, because we use liberalism in radical spaces too, and or supposedly or aesthetically or on paper radical spaces. And in that space, you might like, well, these people aren't committed to capitalism, but if the status quo of an organization is not really, is it? Let's say if it's anti-capitalist but it's patriarchal, right? Then, which I know it connects to capitalism, but somebody could be liberal for just being committed to the status quo, right? Might not be committed to capitalism, but they committed to men dominating spaces, even if they don't look like they're dominating spaces. They could just, and that kind of reminds me of something else I was reading, that the tyranny of structurelessness, that old article that was written.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the backing of like extractive or exploitive environments. I think, I wonder if there's a way that you make clarity on, like, when I'm using this as it relates to a Killer Mike, as he can't keep Jarek name out his mouth,
right?
Raising, or if you go into the more, again, aesthetically radical spaces, like, what do you think about using those words?
No, I think that's a really good point. One, again, these definitions are flexible. I don't just do the definitions because I just think we just need to be so scientific, although we do. I do them more because we need to be dialectical as well, which means looking at how these definitions change in different contexts. So the first way I think most people in the revolutionary left are introduced to liberalism is like the personal dynamics that affect organization. So I know James Farmer has an article about the manifestations of liberalism that's really good. And I know most people, it's Mao's combat liberalism. So discussing how liberalism shows up in how we approach work, how we approach comrades, things of that nature. So I think that's one point that I almost wanted to make a separate entry for, like liberalism as an individual way of movement, right, through the world, and then the political ideology of liberalism. But I do think they're always related, as you're pointing out. With Killer Mike, right, like, yes, you would call it liberal mostly because everyone's talking about that point of hypocrisy. Like, that's Malcolm's key identifying factor, Assata's key identifying factor of liberalism, is that they say something and mean another thing. Or they say something and then don't do anything to make that thing materialize. So I think that is something that shows up on an individual level. Obviously, you just say some shit and you don't mean it. So when we're saying liberals, it's like you said you would be at this event, you're always in front of the camera, and then when it's time to do serving the people food, you're never there, right? So when we say liberal, it's that, but we're just basically talking about a form of hypocrisy that comes from that political ideology. That's how I see it. But I would argue, though, that like liberalism within context is important. Like we talked about this before, like a black conservative isn't the same as a white conservative. White conservatives didn't want black people to read, whereas black conservatives like Booker T. Washington built institutions to teach black children how to read. Now, whether or not that institution was radical or not, that becomes the question. But like a black conservative like Booker T. Washington is not the same as a white conservative. So I think about that a lot when we talk about black liberals. Is that they're not the same. So Killer Mike will talk about Assata Shakur and give her some praise, right? That hypocrisy that we're talking about. But a white liberal wouldn't necessarily do that, right? Like that's a little too left field for them. But because Killer Mike and the black petty bourgeoisie have to control the black community, they have to say things that are going to manipulate the black masses, not the white masses. So that's how I see black liberals working as well. But I would say, Killer Mike, it's also that the ideology like that. It's the hypocrisy that you can just take a little of everything, that liberalism always markets itself as the truth, like the rational and pragmatic middle ground, even though it's a right-wing ideology, it markets itself as the middle. So I see that a lot in Killer Mike, in a Charlemagne as well, where they say, oh, I've taken the best of everything. So I think that's, again, a liberal approach. But he's taking right-wing shit, which is my whole point about it being right-wing. So if you see that thing Jared was talking about, he shouts out... He says, I've read a little Frantz Fanon and I've read a little Thomas Sowell. And I can take a little of both. And I just mix them up. and I get the best. So again, like that's the liberal ideology, is that we could take two fundamentally opposed things materially, and we can just make them ideas, and then they can kind of like merge, and then it's a vibe. You know what I mean? That's I think the black liberal.
We are in trouble.
Oh.
Trouble.
Oh yeah. I mean, when we taught in Theory Thursday, Black Men Build, about the conservative versus the radical, we used Booker T. Washington and Hubert Harrison as our examples. And I got a lot of pushback on Booker T. Washington because there's just some instant pushback that a lot of people have on any sort of historical figure. I would argue that's Black conservatism, actually, where we just any Black first, any Black anything, we feel an instinctive defensiveness about that. But the other thing that got brought up was like this idea that if you build institutions for Black people, you're not conservative. And that was the other discussion, was that because they care about Black people ostensibly, and I do think you could care about Black people as a Black conservative, not much, but you can to some degree. The idea was that, well, then that person can't be a conservative. So this was the discussion that I got a lot of pushback on. Booker T. Washington was like, you didn't fairly talk about him, which wasn't true. We did. I actually didn't talk about his COINTELPRO shit, where he was getting people fired and destroying Black movements. But then the other thing was like, well, Hubert Henry Harrison was just thought of as like a thinker, like in comparison. People hadn't heard of him, or it was like kind of ignored, or the idea was, well, Booker T. Washington built things, right? So the main thing I talked about versus the Black liberal versus the Black radical is like, we actually build shit. First of all, we do build institutions. Like all of us, each you have something that you've helped build. I have something I've helped build. We all help build this. We all help build institutions, will be the first thing. But the second thing is like, what are those institutions for at the end of the day? So that is where I think, again, people are like, well, they built a Black bank for us. They built a Black something. What are these institutions for? What is their history? I think that's the easiest way to address a Killer Mike or an Umar or any of these, whether you call them Black liberals or Black conservatives, whatever you want to call them. It's like, what is the institutions they build, you know?
If we're not vetting people and each other, then sure as hell we ain't gonna vet no damn institution. Because like you can build institutions and think that you're building it for yourself and not let it yield to the needs of the people. So then, I mean, your institution is something that's trying to conserve something or give you a particular stature to feed your individual needs. So it's like, hell, they built an NAACP. That's an institution, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just think it's people's laziness to be like, or lazy or liberalism, to not actually gauge in the struggle of clarity and making sure that this thing is actually living up to its ideal. Because as you learn with Hubert Harrison, the goal is when you join an organization, your ass ain't made it. When you join the organization, now you have to do the deep hard work to make it live to its ideals and change its ideals when its ideals are not serving the people. And my nigga, that's the hardest thing to ever do in this life. So yeah, like, yeah, you're not gonna walk into no organization or institution and be like, okay, we free, and this institution is a freeing dynamic for people. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? So,
Yep. Oh man. Okay. Speaking of, I think we could close with this because someone just brought it up in the chat. If we wanted to talk about like white and Black liberals, like the difference. Someone mentioned, have we talked about the Ezra and Coates conversation? Have you seen Ezra Klein?
No, I saw people make comments about it, and one of the comments was like how good of a conversation what it was, but no, like, I mean, do we want to pull it up? You got any time?
Yeah,
I mean, everybody do that for Tony.
Gross. Let me see where I can find this, because everyone's got the man, an hour 20 minutes. Nah, I don't have that. Do we have highlights?
Huh?
I was looking for highlights. Like all of these are like hour-long. Streamers are doing 2-hour reactions and shit. I was hoping we could find a small clip. Let
me see.
Let's do a little search real quick. Sorry, I know it came up last week. All I'm seeing is Ezra Klein tells Ta-Nehisi Coates about his Buddhist method. Again, that's a whole nother thing with liberals and Buddhism. That's the thing. All right.
I mean, we can skim through this. I don't get to draw line. This looks like that's a conversation. It's a
Yeah,
two-
sure. That might be it. If you could just pull that up.
Ezra Clote's identity meltdown.
I think so. That might be it. Yeah, just a brief one. So again, the difference between white liberals and black liberals, black conservatives and white conservatives is important because again, the petty bourgeois, the black bourgeois are trying to control the Negro masses. And so they have to target their messaging toward us, something that our people can actually believe in and mobilize behind. And so they can't do the same thing white conservatives do because our people will not react the same way white people do to certain things. So I always think that's interesting. You got the Klein thing. Oh man, I'm seeing some stuff in the chat. It might have been worse than we thought. Apparently he's apologizing for Charlie Kirk, all of that. Yeah, again, Ezra Klein is to us, the super, white lib, very useless. I think I'm more interested in Coates because Coates does have some impact in our community. A lot of people do pick up Coates' work and use it as a gateway to consciousness, whether that's a good or a bad thing.
So
Man, this is on. Oh my God. All right. This is about disagreeing on Charlie Kirk.
Let's see why he wrote the piece.
Okay. And I'm interested in what Kirk, I think.
Ta-Nehisi Coates, welcome back to the show.
All right. So
My
just
bad.
thought experiment, because I haven't seen this video yet. I kind of have some familiarity with Coates. What is Coates' take going to be is going to be my question, because he's very big on he won't actually take the revolutionary stand, obviously. So my whole point is I feel like Coates is going to take some Malcolm-ish chickens coming home to roost kind of approach and saying that he doesn't really care, what happened. But I don't think he's actually going to come right out and say Kirk kind of was, deserving this, Kirk was evil, all of that stuff. So I'm interested in how a black liberal approaches this question of Charlie Kirk.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see.
Thanks. I don't know what number time this is. I think you're one of the. If you go back to the Vox space, I think you're one of the. You're on the leaderboard for sure. Yeah. Well, it's good to see you, man. Good to be here, Ezra. Thank you. All right. Well, let's jump into the disagreement. You wrote a column responding to my column on Charlie Kirk. So uncomfortable. It's okay.
He's uncomfortable. Okay.
What was your disagreement?
Uncomfortable disagreeing with him. Okay.
So, yeah.
With what I wrote after Kirk was assassinated. Yeah. First of all, I just want to thank you for having me. I know that I've had to read things about myself that, criticize my work. It's never easy. And people often have a very, very different response than the one you had, which is to invite me here and to talk it out. So I appreciate that. Versus how they live. And then after doing the research, I had to be honest with you. That's when it got really, really difficult. When I went past my initial impressions and started going through all of the clips of the things he said, the way he talked about people, the way he, described groups in ways that honestly, even as I was writing it, I was uncomfortable saying. And so the idea that this guy should be in any way celebrated for how he conducted politics, the fact that he just slurred across the board, all sorts of groups of people. Listen, I want to tell you really what I thought of your friend. It feels like not what you do in a kind of a community. I can see people coming down on both sides of that. I actually think that actually is a great impulse. That after somebody's been killed, why are we losing? Man. We're losing because there are always moments when we lose.
Wait.
See, that feels very fatal.
Ezra say he on the left too?
Why are we losing? Why are we losing?
A liberal Zionist.
We're losing because there are always moments when we lose. See, that feels very fatalistic to me.
We could just pause.
Doesn't feel fatalistic.
Okay. So who is we? It's the black liberal.
He said, why is the left losing? So all of them is we. He done capture the left.
Who is we? Well, you support, he's a Zionist. So Ezra Klein even putting himself on the left is wild. But this is the kind of psychic cover that black petty bourgeois liberals like Ta-Nehisi Coates provide, is legitimizing and platforming these people within our community. Why are you talking to some? I think Tume already said, these are our buddies. That's another thing about the bourgeois that we have to understand, is that they all hang out in the same circles. They got the same class interests. So the fact that Coates, are any of y'all friends with white men like this? Just quick survey of the chat. How many of y'all are text buddies with white people who talk like this? Right? This is crazy. But Coates is saying we. So Coates is letting you know who the we is. Coates' we includes Zionists in his camp, even though he's writing a bestseller talking about how he saw how uneven it was in Palestine. Because to them, again, this is like just political differences that they can just talk through and argue. And that's Chat says, hell nah, none of these are my friends. None of these are my we. So Coates is already showing us what side he's on. I just noticed this is hell. I'm sorry. I just noticed this is the New York Times opinion logo in the background. I didn't even see that. I thought this was a personal podcast.
I thought it was Young Turks. It said, I thought that's what I saw.
Wild. So yeah, Coates is on the New York Times, y'all. Like, this is, again, just the spaces that we're not even invited into, that Coates feels comfortable in. And then the liberal posturing. Oh, I was so uncomfortable when I was reading what Charlie Kirk wrote. Man, you're black, bro. Like, I hate that shit. I hate when our people act like we are clutching our pearls at the horrible stuff that we hear from other people. Like, you hear that on a daily basis, my friend. Your son hears that on a daily. Like, stop.
But, my bad. I put it up to 1.5. My bad.
Good.
To me, it feels like the truth. I mean, and let me express what I mean. I'm Ta-Nehisi Coates. I'm the writer. I'm the individual, right? But I am part of something larger, and I've always felt myself as part of something larger. I have a tradition. I have ancestry. I have heritage. What that means is that I do whatever I do within the time that I have in my life, whatever time I'm gifted with. And much of what I do is built on what other people did before then. And then after that, I leave the struggle where I leave it. And then hopefully it's in a bad place. Oftentimes it's not. That's the history, in fact. And then my progeny pick it up and they keep it going. I am descended from people who in their lifetime fought with all their might for the destruction of chattel slavery in this country. And they never saw it. They never saw it. In my personal belief system, they died in, defeat, in darkness,
Wait. So the people who actually won, and who's he talking about? Because if they actually, if those people never saw it, then who saw it? And there's still the people that he descended from, right?
Right. And I just like the difference between a black liberal and a black conservative. I mean, a black liberal and a white liberal, right? Like, Ezra Klein doesn't talk this way. Ezra Klein, again, I thought Coates was about to fall into the liberal individualism trap, but then he immediately says, no, I'm actually a part of a collective. I represent something greater than me. And so Michael Dawson writes about black political ideologies in American thought. I think it's called Freedom. No, that's D.G. Kelly's. I forgot Michael Dawson's work. I'll look it up real quick, but it's on Black Visions, the roots of contemporary African-American political ideologies. And in it, he talks about black liberals and how they're a little bit different. And it's this kind of rhetoric, this like pulling on radical and revolutionary organizing rhetoric. I inherited tradition. I come from ancestors who fought and all of that. Like, that is something the black liberal uniquely does. Just like the buying power myth exists broadly. And then when we apply it to black people, there's a specific way black buying power is used. Coates is doing that here. And as you said, they don't list the people. They won't say the names because they know that, well, some people are shameless. Some of them are shameless to say the names. But I think Coates is a little too polished.
Listen, if this nigga came from a people who never saw it, how the fuck we get to listen to him on the camera right now?
Oh, he's writing about it. He bears witness. Because again, if we were to pin down,
but I'm saying, but if his ancestors didn't make it, and they
how we see you? Yeah,
like, you shouldn't be here. Don't talk no more. Like, go.
You certainly shouldn't be on New York Times.
How you make it here?
How'd you exactly? All these questions that he doesn't want us to ask. I know Coates' person who he likes to pull from or say he's drawing from is James Baldwin. And I know that's who the white corporate media have also positioned him as the second coming of Baldwin or inheritor.
James Baldface lie.
Exact fucking lie.
Right, let me speed through this shit.
Yeah. Let's
and so I guess the privilege that I draw out of this, the honor that I draw out of this, is not that things will necessarily be better in my lifetime, but that I will make the contribution that I am supposed to make. The fact of the matter is,
so that's an excuse to not to do shit and not go more radical. Okay, guys.
As horrifying as that the killing of Charlie Kirk was, and as horrifying as the feeling is, this moment that we are in, an era of political violence, and I don't want to sound flip here. Political violence is the norm for black experience in this country. It just is. I don't even mean like the Malcolm X, Martin Luther King variety of it, right? Which is the norm too. You would be hard pressed to have a conversation with a black person in this country that is a descendant of slavery, and not have them be able to.
How about drawing a line?
But so I want to hold on this for a minute because I do think this is a very
and that's different from policy, Ezra.
Yeah, I understand it's different than policy.
That's different than policy.
I think that one just reality is the president of the United States is a person who in his comportment as a human being on the public stage, I would have said in 08, in 12, in 16, should be on the other side of the line.
Yeah.
I think he's a person who does not act with any sense of public or even personal decency.
Right.
And then he won in 16, lost sort of narrowly in 20 and then won in 2024. And I think the thing that has led to for me is recognizing that I don't get to draw the line. That doesn't mean I don't have one in my own heart, but I think that is the thing that I am struggling with, which is not only is he clearly for most people, or a lot of people, plurality of the voters in the last election, not somehow way over the line, but like,
are we going to book recommendations?
That means it's a lot of people who are willing to accept things that I thought we would have found unacceptable. Like if you had told me, like I would have thought that the way he acts in public is unacceptable, and it's not. And so I think for me, and this goes back to maybe the culture that you feel didn't exist, but I feel did, that there was a view that we could sort of work with politics with drawing these lines, that there are people going to be inside them and outside them, and we could work that way. And I think that I am like working with the question of what happens if you don't believe that, if you don't control the line. What I see is any line that existed at all collapsing. So I'm watching like Holocaust revisionism on like the biggest right-wing podcasts, right? I'm watching Tucker Carlson like turn in.
He has always voted Republican. And I think, obviously I think sexism is a very, very real force. I don't think it's completely explanatory, but the idea that there is, say, 20% of black men who are fundamentally conservative, that doesn't really surprise me too much.
But I guess let's take, because I think this is a hard time. In
terms of our freedom, as writers and journalists,
recommendations.
I see writers and journalists to speak to people in terms of the amount of people who are empowered and have some amount of privilege and could just look away and are not looking away. It's not a great time politically. You understand what I'm saying? But it's just, it's not the worst either.
No, it's not.
It's not the worst,
All right, then I think always our final question. What are 3 books you recommend to the audience?
So the first book is a book called The Brothers by Stephen Kinzer, which is a joint biography of Allen Dulles and John Foster Dulles, and how incredibly one was head of the State Department, the other was head of the CIA, and how they worked to overthrow multiple countries during Eisenhower's time. It's just an incredible, mind-boggling book, and it's helping me answer some questions about the role of America in the broader world. The second one is an oldie but goodie, which I reached for before I wrote my piece, is Race and Reunion by David Blight, which I think is just essential because it shows how a country forgets, and forgets in service of a politic that I would say is problematic. The third one is our mutual friend Chris Hayes' book, Siren's Call, which I think, in fact, actually tells us a lot about the conversation that we're having today, and the influence of social media screens and distraction.
Thomas Coates, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Assata. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, this is why we study, y'all. This is why we do what we do. What a master class in liberalism. Truly Black liberalism, guys. Just go watch that. That is, if you want to hurt yourself, but have some examples. Those book recommendations.
Trash.
Wow, I mean, this is how it goes, and I always be like, liberals know too much to be acting the way they do, and it's true. Like Coates knows way too much. Someone already asked, yes, that is a Zionist. Ezra Klein is a Zionist talking about the left. So just again, that kind of psyop that Coates is doing by legitimizing this person is crazy. But those books that he recommended, so he recommends a book about the heads of the CIA, which again, I think this is the kind of thing liberals do because they kind of know that people don't really, follow up and investigate unless they're, like us. So him recommending that is crazy, right? Because you read that book and then you go back to this conversation and it looks insane. It looks pretty wild to talk about political violence, and Ezra Klein say, just now Nazis are in the biggest far-right podcast. Like, that's pretty bizarre, considering the Dulles brothers, who helped found and direct the CIA, were very close with the Nazis. They wrote Hitler. They signed their letters, Heil Hitler, I believe. They had business dealings with Bayer and all of these things. So again, just the liberal, it's just now getting this way. It's just now bad. The Nazis are just now in the highest positions of power when they were, since the beginning, in league with the highest offices in our land. So just wow. Has that and then mixes it in with Chris Hayes' book. Just MSNBC news reporter Chris Hayes, and then here's a book about the Dulles brothers, the CIA, and their history in the U.S. Wild side by side, but it just goes to show how Coates' brain works, how Killer Mike's brain works, where he reads a Thomas Sowell next to a Frantz Fanon and thinks that there's equally valid things to take from both. The liberals are cooked, y'all. That is the summary here.
Would you call Cornel West a liberal too?
Yes, you know me. But I might, that's why we come together on the platform. Some of us might disagree with that. But yeah, no question. Anyway, appreciate y'all for coming through. Geechee, what you got going on this week?
Man, just this play we gonna be locked in all weekend. Yeah, those 3 shows. That's it. And I'm gonna try to get some rest in between that. And then tomorrow, Saturdays with Renee. I'll be on. We're gonna finish some conversation around Brian's Quoba's book that we didn't get to. The tickets are on a sliding scale, so pay what you can. All donations or all funds is going to more CNB work. So pay what you can. Yeah, what about you? What you got going on?
National Black Men Build. We recently held a live interview with Chris Smalls in Atlanta. It's on our YouTube channel, so go out, check out that. Chris Smalls, Black Men Build, Black Labor International Solidarity. Locally, Black Men Build Miami. We have a few things going on next Monday. We'll be having a discussion about this mayoral race down here, as well as the repression, the banned books, things of that nature. We will be having a roundtable screening of Sinners for Halloween. So we're going to bring people together, food, popcorn, drinks, and a little conversation, obviously, about that movie, because you know how we do. And I believe at the end of the month on October 24th, Dr. Layla Brown will be down here talking about Pan-Africanism, I believe, at FIU. So just if you're local in Atlanta, tap in. If you're not, tap into our national work. We should be having a Theory Thursday this month, again on Black Labor, looking at DRUM, the Detroit Revolutionary Union Movement. So that's what we got coming up. See, yep, dropped them in the chat for people who are in the Atlanta area and would love to attend. Yeah, go ahead. Avoid Sinners if you want, but if you are going to watch Sinners, I think a community space or with folks of a like mind would be the place to do it.
Yeah, man. I read that Harrison did a review crew type analysis on Garvey. he was writing in the Negro World at the time. He was the editor and he helped Harrison. I mean, he helped Garvey grow, and he had his differences. He was protecting Garvey's race first efforts from some of the Black socialists at the time, A. Philip Randolph. But towards the end of his time, he started writing reviews on movies. And one of the movies was Emperor Jones. And in a sly way, he was critiquing Garvey publicly on his own platform in the guise of critiquing Emperor Jones. And I just thought that was...
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Try not to get too derailed on the Garvey thing tomorrow, as much as I love it. I'm sure y'all will get into the socialism and free love and all the other things. But maybe, little Garvey talk at the beginning, maybe just a little bit, so people clear,
It's gonna be fun.
All right, to you, as our comrade Jared and the great friend Hampton used to say, peace if you're willing to fight for it. Thanks for tuning in. Rest in power, Assata Shakur.
Peace.
Staggering, the gathering, possessed by a pattern that be scattering. Over the global, my vocals be traveling, unraveling, my abdomen is slyness, babbling, grammatics that are masculine. I grab the mid, verbally badgering broads, I wish the matter was back on video LP. I'm with against all odds, I gotta even Steven. Proceeded reading, I believe in everything I'm reading, but my brain was bleak, needing beat and exercise. I didn't seek the best of odds, this a lot of text and lies I analyze.
Remix. 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 Remix.